In this video we would like to give you an overview about XBuildings, a new toolkit with over 20 tools that allows you to create complex buildings for visual effects and games. It also lets you create inside floors and walls, and it's possible to use it as a building generator for your own building design. In Unity you can also directly integrate collision geometry as well as interactive elements as doors. It's very important to us that the user can start as fast as possible. For that reason, this toolset is defined by simple rules. Use this guide as overview for all the tools and get all the information you need. Using it during the process helps you keep track of things. The first page gives you an overview of the tools and their required inputs and dependencies. You should always start with the base shape and the building generator. The building generator turns input shapes into 3D geometries with segments of the same or similar size. Each segment will have an ID number defined by your pattern. For that, you plug in pattern assets. These assets allow you to paint numbers on a grid. You will then create one or more wall elements with different settings for each ID. For example, you will create a wall element for each of your windows and doors. After that, you have the choice of many tools to extend and complete your building. For example, different roof types, but also additional wall details. Furthermore, there are also different assets for inside elements. Each tool comes with information on how to use it and what it accomplishes. The building generator, however, is the most complex one. Therefore, there is an extra part in this guide. First, you choose your building type. There are 4 options. Normal, which generates a rectangular building with segments with flexible height and width. This means that the asset tries to match the target height and width for each wall segment. Complex shape does the same thing, apart from keeping the form of the input geometry. You can also choose static or texture based, which creates segments with fixed height and width. Note, texture-based buildings are only possible inside Houdini. In this mode you plug in textures which will be projected on each wall segment. The next step is setting up the pattern. Input your painted pattern for ground and upper floors. But you can also set wall IDs by size or special IDs for corner segments, for example. If you got a more complex pattern in which different IDs depend on each other, you can protect them, what means IDs will only exist if the neighbor IDs match with the neighbor IDs within the pattern. When the pattern setup is finished, you can set up your wall elements and input your custom geometry. The first option is no input, which gives you only walls. Change the mode to normal if you want to input geometry as windows or doors. If you input cutout geometry, there will be a wall generated, else only the input geometry. If you want to align it at one edge, you can also do that. But you can also completely use your custom walls with the next mode, stretched. It takes your input geometry and stretches the border based on distance thresholds to fit the width and height of the wall segment. Texture-based lets you use textures within materials as wall elements. The last option is random objects. It gives you the opportunity to input several geometries, which then will be spawned randomly at each wall segment. For each mode you got different parameters. Next to different geometry inputs, you can integrate Unity instances, a path to a prefab. That lets you integrate interactive elements as doors. You can also set count by width, for example, that duplicates your input within one wall segment. In terms of UVs, you need to know that only for stretch geometry there will be new UVs generated. It is also very important to give you information about the geometries you plug in into the assets. Every part of your input geometry should have a material assigned. Regarding stretch geometry, endings need to be flat. Every input geometry can have final textures except parts that will be stretched, because those parts will have new UVs at the end of the process, as mentioned before. For positioning and alignment, there is a rule of thumb. Every input is centered into the forward axis direction except walls, doors or towers. For these elements, consider that the up axis position at 0 is the floor, and for walls the forward axis at 0 is the main wall position. Everything into the forward axis plus direction is outside the building, everything into the minus direction is inside the building. For Unity, please consider following. You have to merge all geometries of an asset into one mesh and align it into the minus forward direction. Furthermore, only input geometries into Unity mesh inputs. Don't use prefabs. If you insert a prefab as Unity instance into an asset, you need a parent null object with 0 transforms. Additionally, there are also some general notes for usage within Unity to give you the best experience. Let's talk about some limitations and requirements. A limitation of the system is that it's not yet a solution for organic or curvy buildings. Further, the target design of the building should be dividable into segments with similar height and width. You need to install Houdini Apprentice and Houdini Engine Indie to use it inside your target application as Unity. Both are available for free. But you can also use Houdini Indie if you want to export the result to another application. The installation itself is easy. Just install Houdini Apprentice or Indie first. Don't forget to also install Houdini Engine if you don't want to use it inside Houdini. You also need to purchase Houdini Engine Indie for $0 in the shop. After that, make sure your licenses are installed. If you use the launcher, you will find the license administrator under Licenses at the bottom. If you installed Houdini manually, search for the license administrator on your system. For Unity, make sure the Houdini Engine Indie license is installed, else go to File and Install License. Now you can start your project. For Unity, just install Houdini Engine by drag and drop the Unity package. You will find the package in your program files. There also will be free updates in the future. For example, new tools and features, but also more example files, tutorials and free buildings. So if you are interested, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything.